everyone, and welcome to this oil painting time-lapse. And this painting, entitled Night Potions, spooky. I do hope you enjoy it. Also, thank you so much for your amazing comments on my last video. I do really appreciate it. And apologies for not uploading last weekend. I did actually have a video all prepared until it was prepared until I actually looked at it, and I realised that it looked like a complete disaster because I decided to switch my tripods, never a good idea, and film on my ring light, again not a good idea. I just thought that maybe it would light up my painting and make it more clear, but it didn't really, and I didn't have a proper attachment, so I couldn't fully flip my camera over. So it was kind of like this really weird angle. It was almost impossible to see what was going on in the second, like the upper half of the painting. So I kind of had to scrap that footage. Bit of a shame, really. I did actually quite enjoy that painting, but you never know, maybe I'll resurrect the footage somehow. I don't know how, but anyway. I also wanted to talk a bit about how I have been going through a bit of a problem in these past few months about with my art direction, about where my art has been going, like where has it been heading. I'm sure that people can relate, you guys can relate, and my story that I tell you about my problems hopefully will make you guys feel better and make you feel like inspired to go for it with whatever direction you've been wanting to go in. So I do hope that this helps. And just before I begin that, I wanted to make a quick point. This actually isn't funny, it's terrible. And that is, I've heard that some subscribers have been losing subscribers. Some people I'm subscribed to, some amazing art channels, have been losing subscribers just randomly, like on a daily basis. Like they've been waking up, going to their channel, and it's like minus 100 subscribers every day, or minus 30 or whatever, which is absolutely terrible. And apparently YouTube themselves, whoever they are, have been deleting their subscribers. So I think this is absolutely terrible, and obviously it's really sad. And if you do know somebody who's going through this, then please, if you can, and you are subscribed to them, just check that you are still subscribed to them. I never really understand why this type of thing happens. I've actually had not exactly the same problem, but a problem related to this. I have like a problem with my view count. It's been happening for months actually, and I haven't really done anything about it since I spoke to YouTube about it. Spoke being the hilarious word. Like, you can't actually speak to the YouTube authorities or overlords or whoever they are. I kind of feel like they're overlords, but actually super nice people who work on the team, and like you can't actually speak to them like on the phone, which is a real shame. So you can contact them via Twitter. I think it's a YouTube help. If you've never done it before, it's really worth checking, like speaking to them if you have a problem, because they are super nice. Although I said to them, like, why is my view count frozen? Because essentially once I upload a video, also quite a few of my subscribers have told me that they have not been notified when my video is been uploaded, and I've heard from other artists as well that this is happening to them. And then like my view count will go up in the first like 24 hours, or sometimes the first 12 hours, and then it would just like stop completely. And at first I just thought, like 6 months ago, I thought, okay, maybe no one's viewing my videos because they're just rubbish. But then I realised that I would go on other people's videos, like smaller YouTube channels, and I would like watch their video and their view count wouldn't change, like it wouldn't change at all, or like their view count would be completely frozen for ages, like they'd be stuck on like 12 views or something, and they had like probably had loads of views, so, and they had loads of subscribers as well, so some of them, so I didn't even get it, like they weren't even that small a channel. So I don't understand why. So I said to YouTube, what's going on? I'm so like unassertive, even though I sound assertive, I'm not sure, but I thought I have to say something. So I said something, and they were just like, oh, we don't want people to like, we don't know if they're spammers or like bots watching your video, which is obviously really flattering. You probably think like, oh, the only people who would ever watch your videos are bots, which is, maybe it's true, but so they said in order to get over that problem, they limited the amount of clicks I could have on my video until they checked, apparently, that they were real people. So I don't know exactly how they do that. I feel like it was just a way for them to just get rid of me, and it worked because I didn't ask them again, because I thought, well, there's no way I can really deny that or say that they're just doing nothing. and nothing happened, nothing changed. My view count is still really strange, and it hasn't made a difference to well, it obviously has made a difference. My channel has suffered. It's quite funny because I get more views on, like, if I put up an Instagram video. Mind you, now I do have a few more followers on Instagram, but I used to have way more followers on YouTube, and I think I had like 300 followers on Instagram. I used to get like way more views on my Instagram videos, so I'm not exactly sure what YouTube means Bible is. However, I've just come to give up. I mean, I complained to them a second time about something completely unrelated, and they never replied to me. So I reckon I've been, like, you know, put on the warning list or something. I think if I complain a third time, I might be like, my channel will get deleted or something. I have such a fear of the YouTube, like the people who run YouTube. I feel like everything is constantly changing. It's not actually their fault probably, but it's not the fault of the people who work there. It's just someone, I reckon, someone behind YouTube who's like this Mr. Burns type character. It's like somehow, you know, every time you think you've got the hang of it all, they just come in and change everything. And they're like, haha, you thought. Like the way they changed the whole interface of YouTube. I remember logging in and just thinking, what has happened here? It was like a new world. So there we are. So the thing I wanted to talk about, which is not about that, is I wanted to talk about how over the past few months I've had a bit of a struggle with my like thinking about where my art is going, and having a bit of a kind of, not necessarily reflection, but worry actually, because although there's a side of my art which is basically more based on landscape and much more traditional, and so I do some plein air painting, so going outside with my easel and painting the British landscape, which I adore. And that is a side of my art that gets so much great feedback in, like, from people I meet. They seem to really, really enjoy my art, and because I think it reflects home and like everything around me, and it's something that's familiar, and I guess that sort of appeals to people, and it certainly is something that fits in nicely with the fine art movement in England. However, there is also an aspect to this, which is that I can't actually just do this type of painting, and I've discovered it. I thought for a while that perhaps I would just make this shift and I would become a landscape painter mostly, and if I did portraits they would be in a much more kind of traditional way, with a very kind of, what's the word, academic approach. And so that was what I was thinking about doing, and so it's been on my mind a lot over the past few months. However, I decided basically yesterday that I can't do that, because there is such a huge part of me that is a fantasy surreal artist, and I've spent basically most of my time as an artist working at that and perfecting that, and really trying hard at getting all of the thoughts in my imagination and expressing them in art form. And it's something that gives me a lot of joy, but I feel like I think because it genuinely is me at the core, it's not like that I'm being, you know, doing things to fit in or anything like that. It is ultimately from my own brain, that I think a lot of people really like it on the interweb. and I do think that they do appreciate my other art, my landscape work as well. But I think that on the internet there is such a great sharing of fantasy, surrealist, pop surrealist work that I think is amazing. There's an amazing community, and there's no judgment, there's no snobbery, there's no saying, oh, this isn't fine art, this isn't, you know, something that is specialist and specialized, and this is not in a particular movement, this is just like a fairy or something. But to me, I love looking at that type of art, I love creating that type of art, and I feel like sometimes there's something about the fine art movement, I feel particularly in England, and I love the the English art scene. I absolutely love it, the British art scene. I think it's truly amazing. There's so many opportunities. Actually, there aren't that many opportunities. There's actually hardly any opportunities, but the opportunities that there are brilliant. But I do feel like what's lacking in the British art scene is the appreciation of art that isn't just impressionism or abstract. And I do really adore those two art movements. I adore impressionism, I adore abstract work, but there doesn't seem to be, and then there's a little bit of realism as well, but there doesn't seem to be any fantasy art that's really appreciated. I think there's only one art gallery that specialises in surrealist, like pop surrealist art in London, which is, I mean, it's ridiculous if you think about it, because there are so many galleries in London. I mean, there's actually, we're so lucky, we're so rich with galleries, and it's really sad. Like, you don't get big shows put on asking for artists who are surrealists to contribute. And the only type of surrealism that is really appreciated here is like the surrealists of the past, like Dali and Magritte, for example, to name a few, just a few. But in the kind of modern world, in the contemporary art, it's almost like fantasy work doesn't exist and it doesn't get appreciated. And there are some amazing galleries that do kind of open calls, which are the ones where I managed to get my art into, and they have been amazing. But there aren't actually bigger, like really big galleries that take it seriously at all. They just don't take it seriously. And if you have a big art competition, for example, there are loads that happen, but there are no, sorry, there are a few that happen in the UK, but they are really, really prestigious. They don't, regardless of what they're asking for, whether it be portraiture or landscape, they don't accept or ever put into their shortlist fantasy work. It just gets completely disregarded. I mean, either it gets disregarded or nobody even bothers to enter their fantasy work because they know that they're not going to get selected. I don't know exactly what happens or the reasoning behind it, but it just never gets to galleries. You never see it anywhere, which is a really big shame. And I feel that a lot of people say to me, well, why don't you just exhibit internationally? But exhibiting internationally is even more difficult than exhibiting in England, because just purely because of the competition. I mean, there are so many incredible artists across the world, and I'm still kind of relatively growing as an artist, so it's quite hard to get into those as well. But I think the point that I really want to make is that I feel a lot of the time we do our best to fit in, and what I was trying to do over these past few months was really to try and fit in with this fine art crowd and these you know, painters who stick to a certain type of painting that always gets exhibited, that sells really well, and it's sort of this kind of impressionistic work that is basically, it's really beautiful, but it's just not me. It's not my style. And I was trying to fit into that, and I suddenly realized that I just can't do that. And I've never actually fit into any kind of group. Even at school, I was never, like way back, I was never in any kind of group, and I never fit in any particular, I was in groups as in of people, but I never fit in with the sort of, I never felt I fit in. And in the art world, I do fit in, I feel, with these particular groups worldwide of like surrealists, pop surrealists, and I'm sure there are some pop surrealists and surrealists in England. There must be, but it's just, actually I know there are, but it's just so hard to get into galleries basically with that type of work. But I just realised that getting into galleries is not that, it is important, it's actually vital, but it's not the end of the world if I don't end up getting into like a particular gallery because I don't change my style, which is essentially what I would have to do to be able to exhibit in certain places. And I can still put forward my landscape stuff, and I would be happy and thrilled to exhibit that too. It's just really a sad part of me that feels like there's not many galleries that appreciate this. It's not appreciated in the fine art world. It's not really considered fine art. And like, say if I was to paint a mermaid or a fairy in a magical forest, or a cat with a hat, you know, stirring a cauldron, it would never be considered proper art to some, you know, learned art critic. But then I don't think that I would be approved by any art critic either, because I think I have very definite ideas about where I want my art to go. I think if somebody, when people have told me, and critics have told me in the past where my art should go, I haven't listened to them. So I think that art is all about breaking the rules. It's not about sticking to one particular movement. It's not about just making your art just for selling. And that is really the point that I'm trying to make if you are lost. Because I think that we're all individuals, and ultimately we can't force ourselves to become like other artists, like other people, just so that we can become, you know, accepted in the art world. I think that even if I was to change my art and to fit into this particular style that is so popular here, I think even then I wouldn't fit in with the art movements here. It just doesn't, because I think ultimately it would be fake. It would be like I would be a fraud, because I'd be faking my way through and changing my style, changing my methods, just to show this kind of group of people who have the final say that my work is acceptable to them. But you know, in the end, the only person who is like the worst critic is actually yourself. And if you can accept your work and enjoy it, then you have made a success. I enjoyed painting this so much. I haven't painted anything surreal for ages. I mean, I've been trying to modify my work in the recent past just to fit in, as I said before, with a more realistic, you know, look, even though it didn't work because I ended up going a little bit surreal with it anyway. But I was just trying to make it, like, calm it down a bit more, making it not so surreal. But I just decided to go bonkers and just paint whatever was in my head, and this was really in my head at the time. So I do hope you enjoyed this oil painting time lapse. Let me know what you think, and if you're going through the same thing as I am, then I really do sympathise, because I think it's a dilemma that we all have, and it's really difficult to know which path to go down, and you just have to trust yourself and believe in yourself, and you can do it. So thank you so much, and don't forget to like and subscribe, of course, if you're new, and let us begin the time lapse.